And a touchdown for the Hamilton Tigercats.
Hey all, Rick here from Hamilton Sports Central. We're going to be giving our review of this past weekend's game, and then I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on some controversial stuff at the end of the video. So do keep following for that. So we're going to start with the first quarter. First quarter in the Hamilton 30 to 15 win over Ottawa. First possession of the game for the Ticats from 15 minutes down to 9:02 ended up being a field goal to make it 30-0 for the Ticats. Ottawa would throw a challenge play on their first possession, or their first pass of the season, which ended up being defensive pass interference on Hamilton. But at the same time, some fans were disappointed and disgusted with the fact that Ottawa would challenge on the very first play. Good thing that it worked out for Ottawa Redblacks head coach, otherwise it would have looked really bad. The Ottawa Redblacks ended up punting at the end. At this point, it was 7 minutes and 34 seconds left mark of the first quarter. The next possession, Hamilton would end up being a punt on their next possession, which got Ottawa a penalty, which pushed them back 10 yards from the 50 to the 40. On the next play, Drew Brown would throw an interception to the Goose, Stavros Katratonis. From there, Bo would throw a 5-yard pass to Keandre, which would follow up with a touchdown to the lawman himself for a 41-yard catch to give him 8 touchdowns on the season. At this point, it would make it 10-0. Let's roll the footage. Brown would then fumble the ball on the next play for an 8-yard loss to the Ottawa 30-yard line. However, it would be recovered by Andre Miller. Ottawa would run the offense for the rest of the time from 4 minutes and 39 seconds to the end of the first quarter without scoring any points. So after the first quarter, it was 10-0 for Hamilton. Ottawa would start the second quarter with a 21-yard field goal to make it 10-3 Ticats. Bo would then get some time off the clock before punting 4 plays later to the Ottawa 18, which was a 15-yard no yards penalty to the Ottawa 25. From there was the Deshaun Amos, which I'll discuss at the end of the game on my thoughts on that, because there's 2 different videos that I want to show. So Ottawa would bounce back with a 12-yard and 11-yard passes with 2 rushes from Daniel Adnaboye. After a sack by Ticats defense, this time Garbett, and a rush for 7 yards by Ottawa, the Redblacks would settle for a 27-yard field goal to make it 10-6. Hamilton would go with a 2-and-out before putting it to the Ottawa 25, where Ottawa team would get an illegal block in the back, which would push them back a bit more. The next possession would take 5 minutes off the clock. The Ottawa Redblacks team to continue to cut the lead. This time, it's 10-9 with a 34-yard field goal. So Lewis Ward has scored all the points up to this point for the Redblacks. Hamilton would take time off the clock from 2 minutes and 40 seconds to 57 seconds, as the Ticats would settle for a 37-yard field goal to make it 13-9. Just as the second quarter ends, 57 seconds later, Ottawa kicks a field goal with no time left on the clock for a 45-yard field goal to make it good, to give Hamilton, to cut Hamilton's lead 13-12 to give Hamilton a 1-point lead heading into halftime. For the third quarter, Ottawa would take the ball to start the third quarter, of which they would start at their 29-yard line and ending up punting it at the 12:51 minute mark. Hamilton would have a few plays, but then would end up punting it back down to the Ottawa 4. Ottawa would go 2 and out before punting the ball back to Hamilton. Ball would then get sacked by number 96 Wakefield for an 8-yard sack. However, following the play, ball would throw a deep pass from the Hamilton 44 to the Ottawa 13 to Keandre Smith, who would then fall at the Ottawa 3 for a 63-yard pass. The next play, Trayshawn Ward would score his first ever touchdown. This would make it 20-12. Let's run the footage. Ottawa would follow up with a 2 and out again. We would see Ottawa lose their third to fourth player at this time in a jelly before Jordan Murray of Hamilton, the left tackle, would leave the game and later be seen on crutches. Constantino would punt it 50 yards, and East Winston would return it to the Ottawa 1 instead of taking the knee safety in end zone. Dustin Crum would throw an interception to Dustin Talbert at the Ottawa 53. Let's run the footage. Bo Levi Mitchell would then throw an interception, which is his second of the season, crazy to think, to Darius Pickett, who would return the interception for 43 yards to the Hamilton 24. Also injured on the play is Malden the fourth. Ottawa would rush it for one play and then throw an incomplete pass, then later kick it for a 27-yard field goal to make it 20-15. Hamilton would run an 8-play offense as Leatre would finish it off with a touchdown to make it 27-15. Dustin Crum would rush for an 8-yard run, and then Daniel Adnaboye would rush for a 30-yard play to the Hamilton 44. Next play, Justin Hardy would be throwing an interception to who else? Dustin Talbert. Let's look at the footage. Hamilton would then throw a 30-yard pass to Bergling to the Hamilton 37 before having to punt it 3 plays later for 42 yards to the Ottawa 26. of which Pendleton would return it for 8 yards to the Ottawa 34. Next, Ottawa would run, or next round of plays would end up being a turnover on down with 2:53 left. Hamilton would run 5 plays to cap off with a 25-yard field goal to make it 30-15. And Ottawa would not score any more points in the second game. Before I get into the player stats and team stats, I want to take a look at both the hit that Amos did, and there's another game that I'm going to pull up this week where the exact same thing happened. So let's take a look at the Amos hit. This is just before Amos one, I believe. Yeah, here it is right here. So he goes and hits him, helmet goes flying. Keep in mind, he did not have his helmet done up. That's why the helmet goes flying. So, let's see if it shows it. Like a slow motion, okay, here we go. So, I mean, he kind of ducks his head, but I mean, it's still helmet to helmet. If he gets a fine, I'm okay with that. Suspension, that's a whole different story. Now, helmet to helmet on that play. So now we are going to go take a look at the Willie Jefferson one from Thursday night. Now let's see if I round it too far back or not. Throws it. See, if you just seen Willie Jefferson just hit the receiver. I know it's a receiver, but still, helmet to helmet hits. I don't care if you're the quarterback, if you're a wide receiver. If you're going to suspend hits, helmet to helmet hits, you're going to do it for everyone. So here they are doing another play on it, or another viewing on it. And here comes Willie Jefferson out of nowhere. Again, leads with his helmet to... Now, you cannot tell me that that's not a suspendable hit. Like, look at it. Right to his head. Now, that should be... That, in my eyes, is... If you're going to suspend Amos for this one, you best be suspending Jefferson for this one. Otherwise, don't even suspend the players. If you can't suspend one and not the other, then you might as well not even suspend the players, because they're both helmet to helmet. It does not matter if it is a quarterback or if it's going to be a wide receiver. Helmet to helmet hits should be suspensions, if not max fine. And if you, like I said, if you suspend one, you got to suspend the other. The only difference is Jefferson's was on a wide receiver, Amos's was on a quarterback. But in end of the day, a helmet is on a helmet. It should not matter what position you play. It should, if you're going to fine them. If you're going to suspend them, everyone that does a hit to the helmet with a helmet should be suspended. But that's my little rant for this video. Let's get back to the player stats. So we're going to start with the Hamilton side of things. So Bo Levi Mitchell goes 21 for 33, 327 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, average of 9.9, 63 was his longest. Johnny Augustine, 18 carries for 85 yards, 0 touchdowns, average of 4.7. Entree Milinovic Litre, 2 carries, 7 yards, 1 touchdown, 3.5. Trayshawn Ward, 2 carries, 5 yards, 1 touchdown, 2.5. Tim White, 8 for 10, 89 yards, 0 touchdowns, 31 yak yards, 11.1. Keandre Smith, 3 for 5, 81 yards, 0 touchdowns, 14 yak yards, 27 average. Kenny Lawler, 3 for 6, 66 yards, 1 touchdown, 22 on average. Giovanni Robinson, 2 for 2, 32 yards, average of 16. Keaton Berglington, 1 for 1, 30 yards, 30 on average. Tyler Tanowski, 1 for 2, 9 yards, 9 on average. Johnny Augustine, 1 for 1, 8 yards, 8 on average. Brayshawn Ward, 1 for 2, 8 yards. Shamar Bridges, 1 for 1, 4 yards. And Brendan O'Leary-Orge, 0 for 2. On the defense side of things, Ray Wilburn leads with 7 defensive tackles. Dustin Talbert, 6 defensive tackles and 2 interceptions. Stavros the Goose Kachatonis, 5 defensive tackles, 1 interception, and 1 tackle for loss. And a special teams tackle, Reggie Stubblefield, 5 defensive tackles. Deshaun Amos, 4 defensive tackles and a tackle for loss. Devin Verasek, 4 defensive tackles. Tayshawn Garbett, 3 defensive tackles, 1 sack. Mario Kendricks, 2 defensive tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Jamal Peters, 2 defensive tackles. Kyle Fisher, 2 defensive tackles and 2 special team tackles. Kenny Lawler, 1 defensive tackle. Ryan Baker, 1 defensive tackle. Miles Fox, 1 defensive tackle. Casey Sales, 1 defensive tackle. And then Brian Burke, Patrick Burke Jr., Brian Cole, Trevor Hoyt, and Owen Hubert, each with 1 special teams tackle each. Mark Leggio, went 3 for 3, 37 yards, 3 extra points, and 100% on the field goals. Still perfect on the season. Nick Constantino, 6 punts for 45.6 yards. 54 was his longest. 2 inside the 10, and then also 279 yards for punts. Isaiah Wooden, 2 punt returns for 14 yards, 17 on average. 8 is his longest. And then again, Mark Leggio, 5 kickoffs for 336 yards. 67.2, 75 was his longest. And then again, Isaiah Wooden, one kickoff return for 11 yards, 11 on average, 11 on his longest. And on to the Ottawa side, we have Dustin Crum, 16 of 22, 149 yards, 1 interception, 6.8 on average. Drew Brown, 6 for 8, 66 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 8.3 on average. Justin Hardy, 0 for 1, 0 yards, 1 interception, 0 on average. Daniel Adnaboye, 4 carries, 54 yards, 13.5 on average. Dustin Crum, 6 carries, 43 yards, 7.2 on average. William Stanback, 7 carries, 17 yards, 2.4 on average. And then Drew Brown, 3 carries, -6 yards, -2 on average. Kalai Pimpleton, 5 for 5, 56 yards, 31 yards after catch, 11.2 on average. Andre Miller, 4 for 6, 49 yards, 12.3 on average. Justin Hardy, 7 for 10, 47 yards, 6.7 on average. Daniel Adnaboye, 3 for 3, 20 yards, 6.7 on average. William Stanback, 1 for 1, 18 yards, 18 on average. Eugene Lewis, 1 for 3 for 13 yards, 13 on average. Keelan White, 1 for 3, 12 yards, 12 on average. On defense, Elijah McGee, 7 defensive tackles. Darius Pickett, 6 defensive tackles and an interception. Lorenzo Malden IV, 5 defensive tackles. Lucas Cormier, 4 defensive tackles. Javon Santos Knox, 3 defensive tackles. Bennett Williams, 3 defensive tackles, forced fumble in the special teams. Robert Priester, 3 defensive tackles. Bryce Carter, 2 defensive tackles, a sack. Mustafa Algi, 2 defensive tackles. Daniel Hoko, 2 defensive tackles. Michael Wakefield, 2 defensive tackles and a sack. DeAndre Lamont, 1 defensive tackle. Amari Henderson, 1 defensive tackle. Zach Halhos, 1 defensive tackle. Keelan White, 1 defensive tackle. Eugene Lewis, 1 defensive tackle. Les Morrow, 1 special teams, and James Peters, 1 special teams tackle. Lewis Ward, 5 for 5, 45 with his longest, 100% on field goals. Richie Leone, 4 punts for 47 yards, longest 54, average of 188 yards. Kale Pimpleton, 3 punt returns for 12 yards, average of 4, longest of 8. Winston, wide receiver, 1 punt return, 4 yards, 4 an average, longest was 4. 1 kickoff for 59 yards, average of 59, and then Clay Pimpleton, 5 kickoff returns for 98 yards, 19.6, 29 is his longest. If we look at the passing stats, Hamilton threw for 327 yards, 33 attempts, average of 9.9. Ottawa threw for 215 yards on 31 attempts, average of 6.9. Hamilton had 97 yards on 22 carries for an average of 44.4. Whereas Ottawa had 108 yards on 20 carries for 5.4 yards. They had 2 losses for 12 yards, whereas Ottawa had 1 loss for 7 yards. Net offense was 412 yards on 57 plays for 7.2 yards for Hamilton, whereas Ottawa had 316 yards on 53 plays for 6 yards on average. Hamilton had 15 rush, 7 pass, 1 penalty on first downs, whereas Ottawa had 8 rush, 8 pass, and 2 penalties on first downs. Hamilton had 1 sack for 7 yards. Ottawa had 2 sacks for 12 yards. Hamilton was 13 for 24 for 52.2% on second down. Ottawa was 6 for 19 for 31.6 yards, or 31.6% on second down. Hamilton had 1 interception in the giveaway department, whereas Ottawa would have 3 and 1 DNS. Hamilton would have 1 fumble, and Ottawa would have 1 fumble. Hamilton would have 7 penalties for 75 yards. Ottawa would have 5 penalties for 40 yards. Hamilton was 2 for 3 in the end zone for 50%. Ottawa was 0 for 3 for 0 touchdowns. Hamilton had 3 tackles for loss to Ottawa's 0. There was no block kicks. Hamilton had 3 interceptions for 2 yards, whereas Ottawa had 1 interception for 43 yards. Each team had 1 fumble return. Hamilton was 3 for 3, and his longest was 37. Ottawa was 5 for 5, his longest was 45. Punting, Hamilton had 6 for 279 yards for an average of 46.5. Ottawa had 4 punts for 188 yards and 47 yards on average. Hamilton had 2 punt returns for 14 yards, average of 7, whereas Ottawa had 4 for 16 for 4 yards. You had 1 kickoff for 11 yards for Hamilton, 5 kickoffs for 98 yards, and an average of 19.6 for Ottawa. Hamilton had time of possession of 32 minutes and 41 seconds, and Ottawa had a time of possession of 27 minutes and 19 seconds. With that being said, now Hamilton is now first in the East. Points for, we lead the way by 7 over Ottawa, and points against, we're 5th, as we have 156. Next behind, or in front of us, is Saskatchewan, followed by Montreal, Winnipeg, and Calgary. So we go on the road this week against BC on Sunday. So I will have preview up on Saturday. I will have the Week 8 fantasy news, notes, and everything up Wednesday. And then I will be streaming live over on X as well as YouTube on this channel. Our game on Sunday. I'll see maybe. I'm debating if I want to do the Saskatchewan Edmonton game or not. But if I do, I will send out notifications on Friday. But we will be doing the Hamilton game for sure Sunday evening. But if you've made it this far, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, turn on notification bell for other Hamilton Sports Central, rather it be Hamilton, Ticats, if I have any Bridgeport news to bring to you, because Bridgeport's coming to Hamilton next year, so we're going to be covering that team coming up with training camp happening in September, games happening in October and November. But I do appreciate everyone for stopping by. This is Rick from Hamilton Sports Central, and have yourself a great rest of your day.